Hey, what up, fellow gamers? My name is BC from Alloy 7, and thank you for tuning into Level 5 of Gamer Life. This is our story. This week, I want to talk with all of you about what are the games we are all most hyped about in 2015. And this is a video I wanted to do earlier, but I had so many other videos pop up kind of along the way, and I had to get into those first. But let's do it now, because frankly, not a whole lot of uber awesomeness has come out thus far, and I still think the best days of 2015 are most certainly ahead of us. But it's also a strange question, and I'm kind of glad I waited to do the video because the list has changed probably 6 times, and it even changed again last week. So first game on my list, and I'm going to start from the game I'm least hyped about out of the most hyped, and then the game I'm absolutely the most hyped about in 2015. And first on the list, you guys will forgive me if I'm looking at my tablet here because I have children, which gives you automatic amnesia. First on my list is Hyper Light Drifter, a game where I first saw the trailer and I'm like, yo, that game's gonna be so dope. I can't wait to play it. And I'm still kind of excited to play it, but I'm not as, like uber, man, I gotta play this joint. And this is actually the one game on the list that I think hasn't changed slots. Like, it is the least hyped game out of all the games that I'm hyped about, but I'm still hyped about it. I'm still very much looking forward to playing it with these quasi role-playing elements that it seems to have with action combat. What I'm really concerned about is how big or expansive is the world that you're running around in. Is it a bunch of dungeons and areas kind of loosely tied together, or is there an open world element where we can jump into games? And that information may totally be out there on the internet, but I don't get a lot of time to go scouring for that. So a lot of times I go into a game not knowing much of anything, which is kind of works in my favor because things don't get spoiled. But next on my list is a game that went from the number 2 slot to the number 1 slot, and now it's in the number 4 slot, and that's The Division. And with all the hype surrounding it about how Ubisoft came out and said either early this year, I think it was late last year, they're like, The Division is a legit RPG, which just got my spidey sense was tingling, when I heard that, because my biggest concern was that it's just going to be a third-person shooter that tacks on some leveling elements. But Ubisoft's really come out and said, no, this is legit going to be an RPG. But what has me concerned and why it's no longer, the number 1 or number 2 slot game is that the element of multiplayer concerns me a bit. Like, everything they're showing you, everything they seem to be talking about centers around this playing with 4 other people. And my concern is that there's not going to be a way, and this is totally unfounded on anything factual. It's just things that I've seen, rumors that I've heard. I'm concerned that there won't be a way to play this game by ourselves. Like, I enjoy single player adventures. I enjoy single player RPGs. That's my preference. I don't mind having co-op to add to an experience, but when co-op is mandatory, sometimes that's a little off-putting for me. So I'm a little bit concerned that I may have to play with 4 people. And while I have plenty of people to play with on my friends list, and probably a ton of you that I would eventually play with, there's still that, RPG nerd in me that wants to play by myself and explore by myself and not be at the whim of other gamers who are playing with me. So that gives me a little bit of concern. And also a lot of the problems Ubisoft's been having over the last several months just gives me a little pause. I'm still very excited about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm still very much looking forward to playing it. I'm just not sure that it's going to be, with the information we have today, that it's going to scratch the exact itch that I have as an open world RPG fanatic. Third on the list is the game that was first in the first slot. And when I saw it at the Video Game Awards, I was just blown away. And of course, I'm talking about The Witcher 3. Just blown away by the fact that it's going to go open world and it's going to have all of this sense of exploration and adventure that Witcher games are not known for. They get not necessarily corridor or linear like a Final Fantasy X, but there is a linearity to them and a limit to the exploration that you can do. And it looks like The Witcher 3 is getting totally away from that and giving you this grand open world where you could just go and get lost. But the reason why it's kind of dropped down to 3, and I think it dropped to 4 at one point, but then last week's news, I've been seeing people playing the game. It's got me a little bit more hyped, is that I went back and played The Witcher 1 for the first time this year, and then went back and played The Witcher 2, both of which I have reviewed. I have the reviews done. I'm going to be releasing them closer to the release of The Witcher 3. But I'll tell you what, The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2, something that I didn't notice the first time I played The Witcher 2, and I definitely didn't know because I had never played The Witcher 1, is it really has a lot of fetch quests. Like, so much of the quests are just go here and get this, or go follow this guy around town at night and see where he's going and then report back to me. And it just, that type of questing drives me absolutely nuts. I hate it. I hate little more than fetch quests, man. There's not many things in video games that I hate more than that, other than tedium or just bad design altogether. And I'm concerned that The Witcher 3 is going to suffer from the same fate, where like The Witcher 1, you spent a huge amount of what I think what was the second chapter doing detective work, like following people around town. Like, I'm not doing none of that. But they did come out. I've seen several people last week who've had kind of early access to the game. And I'm hoping to get early access to the game for review purposes. But they're saying that the quests are a lot more in depth and they're combat related and they're actually fun. And then they kind of put together this string of plot points that tie together to make an overarching plot, which is encouraging. That, you know, the quests aren't just going to be go here and fetch me this. It's going to be go and kill this monster and bring back its heart, but then you're going to be able to use that to craft an item, or the person you do that for has some type of political connections in a place where you'll go later, which will help you do something more easily. And for me, it's very encouraging to hear the people at CD Projekt Red and people who have played the game talk about that, because I had to stop playing The Witcher 1 before I finished it to do a review. So the review is abbreviated because I just couldn't finish the game. I couldn't get through it. But next on the list is Axiom Verge. This was one that was way down on the list in terms, I think it was in the 4th slot at one point, but it jumped up because I got to play it at GameStop. The GameStop in my neighborhood actually has a demo version of it. So in your neighborhoods, if you're looking to check out Axiom Verge, go to GameStop and see if they have the demo there, because mine does. And I'm telling you, man, that game took me back to the Metroid days of when I used to love Metroid. Like, I played Super Metroid for a review a couple weeks ago, and I've played the original Metroid, and they just don't have the oomph that they had when I was a kid. But Axiom Verge, for whatever reason, that little chunk that I played, it just does. It cuts down on the craziness of trying to switch bombs and weapons in Super Metroid. It makes that really easy, but then it also doesn't penalize you. Like, you can use different weapons in different situations. And still get the outcome of winning against the boss or whatever the case may be. I'm really, really looking forward to that game. Thomas Happ has done what looks to be a really good job of getting that game squared away, especially because he's basically been flying solo all this time. So very hyped to play Axiom Verge. And my number one game, and you can call me falling for the hype all you want, but the number one game that I'm excited for in 2015 is No Man's Sky. So I've been doing a lot of research lately. There's going to be a Gamer Life to come out in the future that talks about game design. It talks about the philosophy of game design, not so much the ones and zeros or the programming, but the actual design of how do I make a game and keep somebody connected to it. I've been doing a lot of study on how that's done, because I've noticed a lot of tendencies in the games that I play where I get frustrated. So if you saw last week all of the Dying Light footage I did, where I was just ultimately frustrated by the end of the game and did the review, kept it as objective as I could, but I couldn't strip out my opinion that the game is just tedious. And I find that more and more with a lot of bigger budget games, that's my experience. Like, I get burnt out before the end shows up and just don't want to play it anymore, because it becomes this task-oriented tedium. And what No Man's Sky seems to be offering me is that Minecraft level freedom. I've been playing a lot of Minecraft. I've actually started a Let's Play for that as well. And No Man's Sky seems to really scratch that end personality type in me that doesn't like the rules and the structure and the you have to follow this exact critical path in order to get to success. It's, you want to be a miner, you want to be a trader, you want to explore space, you want to get in fights in space, you want to go explore planets. Any of those things that you want to do can become your objective, with the ultimate objective finding the center of the universe. But on your way there, you can decide what the critical path is. And so many games don't do that. They become these linear, just task lists. It's basically like, I'm just going to check off these things that I have to do in a game. And No Man's Sky seems to be contesting that. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, don't believe the hype. It's not going to live up to all its hype. Well, I'm not really looking at what I've heard as hype. To me, I'm looking at what the developers are talking about delivering factually, which is a world that I can go get involved with and decide how I want to play the game, not necessarily be forced to do certain things that I don't find enjoyable, or run through sewers or apartment buildings like Dying Light does. They give you this big open world and they're like, well, but explore, run through this apartment dungeon and just do it. And it's linear and you have to do it to progress the story. And granted, there may be story plot points in No Man's Sky that do the same, but it's really, it seems like the developers have me in mind with this game. And there's so few games out there that really scratch that itch for me. That's why open world RPGs are my favorite genre. That's why Two Worlds is one of my favorite games of all time, because there is this sense of freedom. And even if you take a linear game like The Last of Us, there's still a freedom in how you attack a situation. Do I throw a brick over here and get him to respond to that while I go choke his buddy? Or, you know, it's not like so many other games that try to do things like The Last of Us. There's this critical path of, if you don't throw the brick in the exact right place, they're going to see you, they're going to come get you. And it's very few games can have that level of linearity and still capture my heart and my mind. And I think No Man's Sky is really going to take us there. And granted, we may get there, we may get to No Man's Sky and it may be completely wrong. It may not live up to even my expectations, but I'm really optimistic that it's going to. And that is why that is the #1 game that I'm hyped about. But as I always say, this is our story. It's not about me, it's about us and the collective discussion. I want to hear, what games are you guys most hyped about in 2015? Can't wait to hear what you have to say. Can't wait to see your video responses. As always, thank you so much to all of you who do comments and do video responses. It's very encouraging to see so many people getting involved with the gamer life continuum, the movement, whatever you want to call it. I'm cool with that. And like I said, check out all the other channels that are doing gamer life videos. I always allow them to post comments, allow you to post comments in the video here with your videos. Feel free to do it. I will approve every one of them. I know it goes into the box and it shows up as spam, but I always unspam it so that everyone that comes here to see this can see work. And for those of you just watching who either don't comment or don't want to leave a video response, I encourage you to check out everyone else's video responses, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of good stuff. But anyway, I've rambled on enough. Thank you so much for joining us. Level 5 of Gamer Life is in the books. We'll see you guys back here for Level 6. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. This movement is going to continue to gain steam, and you do not want to miss where we're going in the future. You want to be a part of this. So do it. Anyway, my friends, until next time, until all are one, it's BC, the Brain Supreme here at Alloy 7 Video. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. Peace and Godspeed. And remember to be excellent to each other and to party on, dudes. Peace out.